And what does manhood mean to you?
Manhood, I don't know.
Being a man.
Being a man.
Or being a guy, would you say?
Just being born with a penis, really. I mean, I don't know. It's, like I said before, I don't like putting labels and things. I think like, yeah, okay, you're born a certain way, you can then choose how you want to be. You know, some people want to drink 10 pints at a pub and then call themselves manly. That's one aspect to it. I think that's fine. Other people want to, you know, put a pink shirt on and be considered just as manly. And I think that's totally fine as well.
And so would you say a lot of men suffer from social anxiety? I mean, would I be too intrusive to ask if you've suffered from it?
Yeah, I have, yeah. I mean, definitely. When I was at school, for sure, yeah. I mean, when I was even at uni as well, like I would like really struggle to interact with the opposite sex, and especially like communicate my romantic interest. I had no idea, absolutely no idea. And so it would have definitely benefited me back then, 100%. But I didn't know about it back then.
Okay, and so you see, what's it called? Sorry, game coaching. It's such a new word for me. You see game coaching as a way to facilitate your own personal development, and you encourage other men to do the same. Yeah. And can I ask what kind of men mainly use your services?
Normally men who are in careers, so I'd say demographics probably 20 to 40, in that age range, 20 to 40. And they're in sort of careers and jobs, working in a city, and yeah, just wanting to improve their lives in, like I said before, whether it's dating life, general confidence, social skills. Yeah, just really trying to. They're guys who kind of have. They're quite sort of like introspective in the sense that they've highlighted that there is a problem that they want to address, and they're going for it. So they've got that kind of like initial sense of goal setting or goals, trying to achieve a goal or trying to get into self-development to some extent. So they're you know, I'd say they're kind of relatively ambitious in that sense, in that they've highlighted a problem that they want to improve upon.
And so you help them improve. So how long does it usually take to see change in your clients?
That's a good question. Like it really depends on the client. Like some clients, even just spending a day with them, it's literally like I spend just one day, maybe 6 hours or so, 6, 7, 8 hours with them, and it's just like an entire transformation in one day almost. Wow. Whereas with others, it's like you've got to do like multiple sessions, because like I said, you know, all people are different. You know, some people pick things up really quickly, others they take time to get used to it. With others, they're more like experiential learners, so they have to do things multiple times over and over again until they to get that reference experience for learning and improving. So it really depends on the individual. So yeah, some people need quite a few lessons, some pick it up quickly. Yeah,
so like any sort of skill, whether it be driving.
Yeah, exactly. Driving, playing an instrument, it's just the same thing, really.
Okay, so it's a skill. It's just practicing that skill.
Exactly. Yeah.
Where do you see yourself in a few years' time? Say 5 years. Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
I have no idea, to be honest.
No idea.
Hopefully, doing the same thing. I mean, I do genuinely love doing this. That's why I started it, because I just love helping other guys to improve their lives. And just seeing that development in them, I love it. Like if I can just give a bit of value to someone, for me it's massive. It's so like empowering for me, on a personal level. But yeah, just being able to just help guys, just it's just massive for me. Okay. And not just help guys, just improve like society in general. Because, like I say, I think this is something that is lacking in society. You know, if this had been taught to that guy that murdered. What's his name? Everett. Yeah. I mean, if he had learnt this stuff from that age, you could make an argument that have happened. Perhaps not. So I think this is very relevant in terms of helping people.
So it has a knock-on effect of helping everyone in society.
I think so. Yeah.
Some would argue that this kind of commodification of women is degrading, using them as practice for your own personal development. What would you say to that?
I wouldn't really necessarily agree with that, because I think that you know, looking at it at a very fundamental level, you know, it's essentially a guy approaching a girl for romantic interest, and you know that's been happening for generations. It's the reason we're all here today, and you know, I don't feel as if it's anything particularly out of the norm. Obviously, there's some element of practice to it, and it's not necessarily using them as a commodity or using them as just kind of like a practice target. It's really about, you know, developing that social skills so that you are actually having that genuine, authentic conversation with a person that you genuinely want to have a conversation with. So it's not just like, you know, just going up to someone, wasting their time and using and abusing them. It's really not like that. I think it's really about actually seeing someone that you really want to make a connection with and seeing if you can take things further. So it's actually coming from an angle of like real kind of authentic desire rather than just like, you know, using and abusing people.
Even the word desire seems quite...
No, I don't think so.
strong.
I disagree. No, I mean, you know, if someone has a romantic desire for someone, I think that's okay. I don't think that's something that should be repressed or inhibited.
Ah, okay. So what do you think are the results of repressing and inhibiting desire?
Well, for example, you know, well, what happened in the news case with Sarah Everett, for example, that could be an example of something. Maybe there was some traumatic experience from that guy's past which led him to doing something really horrible later on in his life. Yeah, I mean, you know, there's a multitude of things that can happen. You know, for some guys, they might just hold it in and bottle it all up and never...
It all erupts like that. So we should sympathise with these aggressors.
Yeah. Well, it's a balance. It's not just saying, yeah, okay, you had a bad childhood, let him off. You know, it's not like that. I think it's obviously a balance. But my point really is that, you know, I don't feel as if like you have to, you shouldn't necessarily feel fear of wanting to express yourself like authentically with a new person. That's really what it comes down to. And yes, it is going to require practice for guys who are new to it. And so yes, there is going to be some element of having to practice and going up to a multitude of people, but it's not about kind of, you know, using and abusing people.
But how is it not using them? Unless you tell them perhaps that, hey, look, I need to practice approaching women. Could we?
Well, yeah, you can say that, but it's not the same. It's not the same, you know.
So then if they
because
don't
it's
know,
not an authentic. It's not an authentic interaction if you've already told them, you know, at the beginning.
But then if it's not authentic,
it's not going to be authentic. It's just going to be
for practice either.
No, it is, because even though it's practice, you know, we're all practicing everything, you know. You practice an instrument for the first time, it's not like you're not playing the instrument. It's partly practice, but it's also coming from a genuine desire to want to speak to that person. In the same way as you're learning a new skill set, for example, playing an instrument, you're playing it because you genuinely want to play that instrument and you're trying to genuinely get better at a certain activity. It's kind of the same with this.
But still using women as a means to an end is...
It's not really a means to an end. It's part. The journey is just as important. The process is just as important as the end, really. So it's not really like, you know, using people for a certain end. It's about, like, you know, being able to just have, you know, see someone that you find attractive and stirring up a conversation. It's not really something that you necessarily really want to overcomplicate. You know, it's something that's been happening for years and years and generations, and a lot of guys in our society today are afraid to do that and are afraid to express themselves naturally.
And where do you think that comes from?
It's a multitude of factors. I think like technology has played its role, you know, dating apps, and I think...
so you think dating apps,
it's one aspect, yeah,
inhibit men from approaching women?
I think so, because it's partly an easier way of doing it, and there's kind of like a screen replacing that actual human interaction. So it makes things easier. It means you don't necessarily actually have to you know, put yourself on the line as such, and so it's less effort. It's easier. So
it makes men worse at doing it because it's easier.
Yeah. I think so, yeah. And if, as you were saying before, in terms of like commodifying people. I mean, these dating apps are doing exactly that. You know, in my opinion, people are treated as just disposable things. You know, on these dating apps where you just swipe. You know, it's just treating people as like just far more disposable as compared to a real life interaction where there's this genuine, authentic desire to want to genuinely meet someone that you've picked out specifically and that you really want to build that connection with.
Oh, I understand that. I can see that side of things. But at the same time, wouldn't you argue that meeting someone in person has genuine risks attached to it, as opposed to just through the screen?
Yeah, there's always going to be risks because, like I say, you don't know like what that person's gone through. Maybe they're having a bad day. Maybe they've got like some, mental health problems, or it could be a multitude of factors that you just don't know about. And yeah, there is always that risk. But I think that overall, given the overall kind of picture, I feel like that I think that the benefits outweigh whatever costs there are. But so, obviously, being sympathetic to those small amount of cases where the person might not be comfortable or whatever.
Mm-hmm. And on the flip side, can you use mental health as an excuse for rape, for sexual assault?
It could be a reason. I don't necessarily think that it's an excuse, or to the point where you'd be like, oh, just let him off because he's got mental health problems. Obviously, that needs to be addressed.
So how do we address it?
That's beyond my scope of knowledge.
That's not our scope of knowledge. But surely some of the men that come to you might have these kind of issues. Maybe
I've never had that, no.
Maybe they've had
no
questionable interactions with women before.
Possibly, but really, like 99% of the time, it's mostly a lack of speaking to women. Not like, oh, I've spoken to women, but they gave me this really kind of negative response or something. It's mainly, lack of being able to just go in and approach and speak to someone, rather than, oh yeah, I keep on having these negative reactions, and one time I got slapped in the face. It's not so much about that really.
But why would someone have a negative reaction? Why would someone have a negative response?
What do you mean? What?
You're really putting a lot of emphasis on the response of...
No, because you brought that up. It's like you're the one who said about the negative responses.
No, I said, how can we use mental health as an excuse for rape? And rape it's not about the victim, it's about the perpetrator. All the time people say, oh, why are you reacting like that? But why was the man initiating like that? That's the question we should ask. And I'm asking you, how do we stop people from initiating in ways that make other people uncomfortable? Or unsafe?
Yeah, I mean, I personally, I'm not an expert when it comes to this kind of thing, because you're delving into kind of like human nature.
So where do you think rape comes from? Why do you think people do it?
It's kind of hard for me to say. I mean, I'm not an expert on these things, but I mean, there's a multitude of factors really. I think that, for example, one thing would be traumatic childhood experiences, or even traumatic adulthood experiences. Yeah, I mean, it could be a mental health disorder. It could be a lot of things that cause these things, and when you really look at the root cause, I think that's when you find the answers. I mean, like I said, I'm not an expert, so I can't really comment on the exact causes of these things. But certainly, for example, relating this to what I do, I think that what I do in terms of helping men, I think it would certainly help to reduce any kind of desires of this kind of nature.
To reduce desires?
Yeah, or at least reduce these kind of negative interactions with women.
Okay. So how do you create a more positive interaction with women?
Well, first of all, coming at it from an angle of authentic expression, and I guess being very sort of sympathetic to the woman's situation, and also just kind of trying to essentially spread positive energy. That's what it really comes down to, rather than coming at it from a very aggressive sort of angle. I mean, that's just very fundamental, basic stuff. I think like a lot of guys get caught up in this notion of masculinity where it's like, I need to be super macho, and then because that's what girls find attractive. But it's really a balance. It's really more of a balancing act, because you go too far with that and then it just becomes very off-putting and very kind of obnoxious really. So yeah, it's about finding that right balance, I think.
Oh, okay. What about the balance? You do seem to come up with them. You seem to reiterate certain points: authenticity,
Yes.
balance.
Yeah.
It sounds very, very zen. It sounds very even.
Perhaps, yeah. I mean, well, that's what it is, really. I mean, you can't. For me, I try not to like go to one extreme or the other. I think, you know, especially as a coach, you know, I don't like to push a certain agenda. I like to do what I think is relevant to the skill set, and then it's down then to the individual how they then use it moving forward. I can't really control that. I can only establish a foundation by which the person who gets taught then takes it further into their own lives.
Okay. So if some of your students did have certain situations come up, say a sexual assault situation, how would you feel about that?
I'd be very disappointed, extremely disappointed. I'd be thinking, God, what happened to him?
And what did he do?
What did he do? How did he get to that point? Yeah, I'd obviously have a look back and think, how did I interact with him? Maybe I didn't notice it at the time, or maybe it developed post coaching, afterwards, after coaching. Maybe it's just some moment in his life that triggered that kind of behavior. It's just so many, a million different like reasons why things could happen, and it's hard to sort of say, oh, it's because of this specifically, you know.
I mean, ultimately, though, it is a choice. All kinds of aggressive behaviours or invasive behaviours are a choice. And so, what do you think happens in that split second when they choose to do it or not do it? What do you think is that trigger? What's one of the main triggers potentially?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think like there's just a lot of things, or potentially one thing specific. I don't know. I can't really comment. Like I said, I'm not like a human behaviour expert.
Are there any qualifications you need to obtain?
Not really.
Is there anything that's signed off?
No, I mean it's really comes from experience. Like for example, you know, the guys on the online stuff, they've seen me giving my advice, showing me in action, that kind of thing. So it's really they kind of look at me, they resonate with what I'm saying and what they see from me. So it's not like necessarily like I have a qualification in this, and then you know you could take even that argument a step further and be like, oh, so how valid is this qualification, or how qualified is the person who qualified you for this qualification? You know, all these. You know, you could take it a step further and further and further, and really it's really just comes down to, does a guy who watches me resonate with what I'm doing? That's it. And if they do, then they might be interested in you know, doing some coaching with me. Some do, some don't. Some might like me, might like my stuff, but they feel like they can do it by themselves. Whereas others really need that helping hand, or someone to really push them, someone to guide them, someone to mentor them. Certainly, I feel like it helps. It definitely helps in the vast majority of cases to have someone to help you and mentor you.
I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm assuming you'll want to grow this and do more and help more people as time goes on.
Sure.
Right? And if you don't have, there's no qualifying body, and something does go wrong with one of your students.
Yeah.
Do you not have something to cushion that?
Not really. No, there's no regulate in this industry. There's no regulative authority or anything.
Should there be?
Maybe. I don't know. Maybe. Maybe in the future there might be. Who knows? But
would you
there's not
help
right now.
facilitate that? You could be a pioneer.
I could, or you could. I don't know. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I mean, I like what I'm doing now. I mean, I like, but who knows in the future? Who knows? But then again, it's like who regulates the regulator, you know?
I understand that. But at the same time, our society does run on associations and organisations and regulations. Every single other industry has some kind of governing body that keeps people in check. If a student does something wrong, some people will ask the teachers and the head teachers and the teaching associations and the governing bodies.
Yeah.
If something goes wrong with this industry, who's to blame?
Yeah.
That's all we have to say.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, you can't, you know, yeah, it could be the coach, it could be the individual. You know, if the student then goes on to do something very bad, it's easy to point the finger at the coach. But then again, maybe what they did was strictly just on the individual and had nothing to do with the coach. It's just like I said before, there's a million different reasons why things happen, and it's sometimes hard to pinpoint exactly one specific cause as the culprit.
Interesting. I think it's easy to point in a million directions if no one wants skin in the game, if no one wants to step up and take that responsibility.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you take responsibility for your students?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
But if they behave badly, then you don't?
Well, they haven't behaved badly ever that I know about. So. But if they did, if it did happen, then I would look back and think, was there something I could have done? Was there something I didn't quite pick up about them? Was there something, how could I have tailored it more to them as an individual?
Well,
I would certainly look back and think, because that's how I always operate in everything I do. Like, I always look at ways in which I can always improve. So in my coaching, I'm always looking at how I can improve.
Do you keep data and files?
It's not as bureaucratic as that. It's more like in the moment when I'm in the actual session with the person. I'm with them, and I'm trying to kind of find out about them. Find out about their personality, find out about their backgrounds, find out what they can do and stuff.
Okay, fair enough. Even, what about videos? Do you ever film things? Or take note of anything? Or do you just keep everything in your head? Every single client, every single backstory, and every single interaction? Yeah,
because I'm with them the whole time. I'm listening to them in their interactions. I'm finding out everything about them.
All right. Thank you, Ed. You can find him on
YouTube at Daygame Coaching.
So yeah, anything else? Instagram, Facebook, Twitter?
Not really.
Not really.
Just YouTube. Yeah, just YouTube really.
Nice. Ed Gaming. No. I keep getting it wrong. Ed Game Coaching.
Ed Game Coaching.
Game Coaching.
Not to be confused with End Game. Because if you type in Ed Game just by itself, you get End Game comes up and it gives you all this Avengers stuff. Ooh. So that's why I actually had to change my name.
To Ed Game instead?
No, to Ed Game Coaching.
Oh, coaching. Oh, because obviously you don't want to get mixed up with the Avengers.
Yeah, exactly.
But you are some kind of superhero.
Thank you.
Is that what you're saying?
I had never thought about that until now. But maybe I'll use that. Maybe I'll start using that. Actually, no, I can't use that because then it just makes me sound egotistical. Cheers for watching. If you'd be interested in one-to-one coaching with me where we'll go out in public and work on you approaching girls, or more generally with your social confidence, please visit my website ed-game.com.